Hi guys, thank you for stopping by. I'm so very happy and grateful that you're here. With this video here, it's going to be a relatively quick one and easy. I'm going to be using Trinity Stamp's So Appreciative. That's that one there. And I'm also going to be combining it with the Sunflower Bouquet Builder. And in this video, I'm going to be using some of the Distress Embossing Glazes. It's the first time I'm using them outside of just swatches, so this should be interesting. And I'm just using some rainbow colors of Distress Oxides. I'll have the colors and the items that I'll link them below if you're interested. To save time, I already created my card base with a black matte panel on there. And I'm also going to be using Trinity Stamp's Boiled Sugar Mix. These are great clear droplets that do not have that air bubble in the middle, and they come in a wide range of sizes. So I highly recommend them. Moving on, I'm going to be using this mat. Is a new mat I just got, and it's one that I tried for the first time in this video and I really like it. It's just a rubber mat that's heat resistant. It's by Imagine Crafts. I picked it up from the store and I'm pretty happy with it. It cleaned up nicely. It held my cardstock, not completely still, but it gripped it pretty well. And I was able to heat, which you'll see coming up here shortly, I was able to heat up my panel to dry it. I used my heat gun on it and it worked perfectly. So I'm just using my Distress Oxides. The colors I use will be linked below, and just a Roy G. Biv, a rainbow collection here of colors. And then I really wasn't paying too much attention to the blending of the colors next to each other or in the center primarily, because I knew that was going to be covered up by my sentiment and it really didn't make much of a difference. And I knew ahead of time that I was going to be stamping all over it, so it would blend in the seams where the colors meet together. That seam would kind of fade away. So here you see me, I'm just using my heat gun on this mat. I was expecting it to melt or whatnot, but it actually worked pretty well, so I'm very pleased with it. It's a good purchase for me. Okay, so after heating it up, I just checked it quickly to make sure that no embossing powder would stick to it and that it was nice and dry. Once dry, I grabbed my embossing glaze and I put my panel into my MISTI, and I'm just going to start stamping the sunflower bouquet randomly. I'm going to fill up the panel with these images, and I'm going to try to coordinate the embossing glazes to the colors on the panel. These have a slight transparency with a light color. It looks so much darker in the bottle, but it's not. It's very clear, very light red look to them. I was going to film, I swatched these out, I didn't film it, but I'm going to have another video on these and some shimmer paste coming up shortly. That's my next video I'm planning. Now here you're going to see I'm going to use a Versamark pen to just make the stem on that sunflower there so it wasn't floating in the middle of space with nothing grounding it. I'm adding some leaves and I'm just going to go around real quick, just adding them in, filling in the gaps, and just making this full panel full of embossing glaze images using the Sunflower Bouquet Builder. I'm not sure about you, but I tend to use the oxides for ink blending because they are so smooth and they blend nicely. I'm using here Neenah 110 pound cardstock. I didn't use the 80 pound because I knew I was going to be doing a lot of heat embossing and I wanted to try to minimize the warping. And so that's why I chose the 110 pound, just for a little more heft. So moving on here, I'm just going to be heat embossing this entire panel, and that's basically it. And then after that, I will show you where I go from here. I don't know if you have a Versamark pen. or Versamark Marker. I highly, highly recommend this. There are so many things you could do with this marker. It's spectacular. You can use it on stencils. You can use it to write personal messages. You can use it to write a frame, dashes, whatever you want. The possibilities are endless. Highly recommend the Versamark Marker. So I'm super speeding this up here because it's basically redundant, and I don't want you to get too bored. The next thing I'm doing here is I'm taking a few of these sentiments, just a note, hello friend, hello sunshine, and thinking of you, those four, and I'm using an acrylic block, and I'm just adding these in gray in the background just to add a little bit more, fill in those empty gaps, just filling it in for a little bit more interest, just to make it a little more personal. In hindsight, I should have done this before I did the embossed glazing, but hey, we're card makers, and I try not to go back and start all over again. I try to salvage what I have and move on with it and let it be, you know, it's a handmade card. It's not going to be perfect, right? I'm not Hallmark here. So I think we can all agree on that. So I'm just doing that quickly, and I noticed I had to be careful because of the embossed glaze. When I go to stamp, it would slide a little bit. So I had to be a little careful there. It was slippery. So yes, if I had to do this card over again, I would definitely add my sentiments under there and then add the glaze on top. Moving on, I'm going to be stamping the I Appreciate You stamp from the So Appreciative stamp, and I'm using a ton of powder. I use a lot of powder because when I don't use enough, no, even if I use it, you know how you're supposed to use it, I still get a ton of stray embossing powder. So I tend to use extra powder to try to avoid getting those strays everywhere. I struggle with this. So, which, see, I still got some strays. And after it's smooth and melted, I can wipe away the powder, and I'm back to my black cardstock as it was in the beginning. Next step, I'm just figuring out the layout where I want to put the I Appreciate You. And I realized I was going to have my panel the other way with the red in the corner, in the top left corner, and I realized the way I set up my sentiments, I can't. So that's why it went in this direction. And I'm going to put a little bit of foam tape on the back of I Appreciate You. Just adding some 3M Scotch foam tape there. It's fairly thin. And I was going to add it to the secondary sentiment, but I realized the Y from the sentiment blocked a part of it. So I just used glue and glued it flat onto the card base. You'll see that here in a moment, which, yes, I'm doing that here. I'm using some Tombow it's Tombow glue. I forget what it's called. Next, I'm going to be using my Glossy Accents in my fine tip applicator. This I use on every card. I have to say 98% of cards I make, I use this. Whether it's to glue down embellishments, or whether it's to add shine to a letter or eyes to a critter, whatever it is, I use this on every card. Here I'm just adding the sugar drops, boiled jelly sugar drops, to the card in all different sizes. I'm using, I believe I used 11 or 9. I always use odd numbers. The rule of threes, right? So that's where I got that from. So I'm adding those down with my crystal katana. Love my little tool. And there is my card. Unfortunately, you can't see the sentiments that I stamped with the acrylic block on there too well, but you can see them in person. It's very light and very subtle, which is what I was going for. And that is the card, folks. So, oh, I also want to add, if you're having a problem with embossing, some gaps in your white, you can always use a jelly roll pen. But just know, when you add it, it takes a while to dry because it's a slick surface. So just add the white and put it away, because otherwise it will smear. It takes a while to dry. Usually I let it sit overnight, because that pen on that slick surface, it will smear. I've done it many, many times. So put that aside overnight to dry, to fill in the gaps. I use this also because many times my embossing is not perfect. And that's it, folks. So I hope you have a great day and you all stay safe. Please check out the Trinity shop if you get a chance, and click like and subscribe. Have a great day. Thank you so much for stopping by.